Tracing history is just overall a discussion about how animation shaped our lives. You know, what stands out, what becomes legendary, what becomes sort of an iconic thing in our minds, and I think everyone has their own unique perspective. Now today I'm joined with a man that has so much to say but no place to say it, but here on ScreenBlast, here on Cartoon Chat, it's Martin.
Hey, how y'all doing? I will get it someday, I promise.
Yeah, we'll find a way, a place to
locate this guy.
Locate this guy, yes indeed. Like I know, for instance, like it's so weird seeing like so many people that like just are nostalgic for Despicable Me and Minions because they're so much younger than we are. Mm-hmm. So that becomes like a sticking point out for a lot of people. Like it's weird, but it makes sense because that's what they grew up with. Whereas for us, because we're older, it's like, wow, fucking Minions was your nostalgic watch. Like that's crazy.
They turn around like, oh, but you like fucking Shrek.
You like Shrek, exactly right? Yeah.
And then they go to and insult Smash Mouth, and you're just like, okay, it's on now.
It's on now.
It's on now. You went too far with that.
A more open-ended, not even open-ended. Just want to start from, I guess, the beginning. Like I start with Austin. When you think of animation, when you think of cartoons, in your memory, what's like the first thing that's not biggest thing, but what's the first thing that sticks out sort of in your memory from when you're a kid?
Well, I wouldn't say it's just a particular animation. I would say it was a segment of animations that happened a certain day of the week. Back in the 90s, you might have it on certain Fridays. Every Friday you get it's been a long week. When you sit down, let them show you something.
Right.
If you don't know, understand the references that I'm putting out, it's Cartoon Fridays.
Yeah.
And how there
were definitely some young people like, what
like,
is that?
What is
no, yeah, the legendary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a straight lineup of all the early 90s?
All the like, 90s self-produced content.
Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Cow and Chicken. It was another one. I can't remember the name of it.
There had quite a few that were sort of that roamed around, lasted a small amount of time, and then kept it moving.
Yeah.
Ed and Eddie, obviously.
Yeah, Ed and Eddie, and but yeah, these are things that you just, it's like when you're a kid, you go to school all week, and you get tired of it, and then that one Friday, like, it's the weekend, and this is just, Cartoon Fridays was just like, the weekend has started, get ready, and then they just a lineup of cartoons that you could just sit there and you didn't even turn your mind up, because they were just
fun.
Oh!
Courage.
Was Samurai Jack would come on right before Cartoon Fridays.
Yes. I can't recall if it became Fridays at that point, but either way, the message is pulled home because Samurai Jack was huge too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. There
you go.
That's what I was trying to think of.
There you go.
I saw that nose from Billy's. I saw Billy. I was like, what?
Where's that shape from?
Yeah.
It's this giant, round, weird thing.
So yeah, like
he's such a weirdly designed character, by the way.
But it wasn't called Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, but it was
Grim and Evil.
Grim and Evil, because it had Hector Concarne in it.
That's right.
With them all in, which I didn't mind at all. But when they separated, that show went to the wing because it just disappeared.
You didn't like Evil Concarne by itself?
No, I did. I did love it.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, once it separated, it just disappeared basically.
Oh yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, no.
I think a lot of people latched on to Billy and Mandy
easily.
Evil Concarne, because I guess it's because Billy and Mandy were just two kids, while the cast of Evil Concarne were all adults.
Yeah, Mad Scientist and funny comic relief guy and the bear.
Yeah. And
and
the stomach.
God.
Don't forget the stomach.
And the stomach. Oh my god, dude. That show is so much fun. That's a discussion in itself.
Yeah, but that entire just like when you're a kid and that happens, just you're just ready for it, and you can watch it all the way up until what Adult Swim came on, and then you hit it to those shows that you didn't understand the jokes to until you got a little bit older.
Absolutely.
And then once you get older, you realize, oh my gosh, this is the jokes I missed out on. I wish I wasn't a stupid kid. So that
when
was
so I can feel it in its prime.
Yeah. So a Friday is basically what I was talking about when animation, because it was just it led right into the very next day, the morning, with Saturday morning cartoons.
Right.
Well, on your Fox 45, you had your WB Kids.
That's right.
And you just that whole stretch until you got that 12 p.m. slide.
And that got to infomercials.
And all that nonsense.
Some golf and stuff.
The between those time, you off from school. You come home. You watch all the cartoons you love. Mm-hmm. You go to sleep. You wake up and you watch more of the cartoons that you love.
Yes.
And then the rest of you can just go outside and play or play video games or whatever you want to do.
That's right.
But yeah, that is the thing I remember as a kid that just got me through the week, just knowing that new episode is gonna come out. Especially when they hype up new episodes all the time back then.
They would build it up. Monday you would know about it. Tuesday you would know about it. Wednesday you'd be reminded.
They over and over again, just like, this is coming on. This is coming on. Like, can't miss it. Don't be there. Don't miss it, guys. Like, your parents wanted you to go out to the market or something.
You're just like, okay, as long as I can get around, as long as it's not in that 30-minute, that 24-minute time range where this episode is gonna run.
Come on, don't take me. I'll stay here and watch the house. You can't be here alone. You can't be here alone. Let's go.
Go outside, have some fun. What are you doing? Yeah. Go outside, have some fun. It was I definitely feel you on that. The Saturday morning stretch was amazing too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really good point. That 24-hour time period where it's Fridays at night and then right into the next, and boom, you have Saturday morning cartoons. That's a really good point. Were you more Fox kids, or would you flip through? Because I would flip through what's on and what's not, and what's my favorite.
It would change. Sometimes it even come to the shows that have the same time slot.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly flipping back and forth, like, what's going on?
That's
what's going on here?
Try not to miss whatever. Yeah.
Because you have like Ninja Turtles on Fox Kids, and then you have like Mucha Lucha or something on WB. It's just like, God damn it, I got to switch between them. Like, which one I keep on more? Like,
absolutely.
Until you got to, like, I don't know, the early 2000s, and then you had like recording, so you could just record one and then go to another room and watch it there.
That's true.
But early in it, it was just like, because the Fox Kids had what? Like Sonic,
Fox. It depends. Fox that Fox 4 Kids era. Yeah, it was like Sonic and Kirby and all that.
No, that was on WB.
Kirby was on WB.
Dude.
Kirby was on Fox. I thought
it was on Fox.
Yeah.
Oh man, well.
Yeah.
It was Shaolin Showdown.
Shaolin Showdown was on WB.
Shaolin Showdown. It was Jackie Chan Adventures.
Yes.
And it was a race car one.
Guys, in the comment section, use your trivia minds and find that racing one for us, because it'll catch up to us at some point. There's some
It was based on a game. F-Zero.
Was it F-Zero?
F-Zero GT. F-Zero JK. GX.
That had to be on
Was
Fox.
It Fox? That was Fox?
That had to be Fox. Because all that Nintendo stuff was on Fox 4 Kids.
Okay. I'm blinking right now. It's
together
to me.
I'm going to be honest. Like, I can barely stretch it. Like, when I think about, like you brought up Fridays and all that stuff, like, I just remember summers like these, middle of the day, like, in the, like we're in the basement now, when I was a really young kid, not even really young, but just as a kid, in the basement, it's cool in the basement, and you're on the big box TV, like, the big old box TV and shit, and just, like, the coming up next when it was Cartoon City. Yeah. And it's like, that's what I remember. Like, I remember those, and I remember watching those cartoons, but if you wanted me to pinpoint down, like, a vague cartoon, that'd be very tough. Because I'll remember all the shows I remember, but a vague one, that's tough.
I remember. Oh no, but I remember changing channel whenever there was certain cartoons came on, like Cramp Twins. I didn't really enjoy the Cramp Twins.
No.
It was a cartoon that was there, and I would just skip over it. But yeah, just thinking about it, it's such an
So you weren't really into Nick that much, were you? Because it sounds like you had Cartoon Fridays, and that was like a big deal.
Yeah, Nick had cartoons too, but
they would balance it out with live action stuff, right? because that's my deal. That's always been my issue as a kid. Was once they switched over and kept increasingly putting live action stuff in, I literally left. Like, I was like, all right, I'm only here for Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, SpongeBob, Rugrats. I watched a little bit of All Grown Up, that sort of thing. And then whenever those weren't on, there's a couple other ones I'm not talking about. Then I would jump over. I would immediately jump over.
I didn't mind the one with segments like the Amanda Show. I watched that. I watched all that.
Okay.
I watched what's the other one? Kablam. That was a cartoon one.
Yeah.
And and of course the only live action cartoon that is actual live cartoon that I would watch and would recommend anyone watching now, and that's Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Like,
thank you.
That
you reminded me. I forgot. Ned's Declassified is the that's the same.
It is absolutely such a great show to watch. I would. That was one of the ones that came on Saturdays, in the morning.
Yeah,
and you would have to. But it didn't come on at the times when I would watch the other shows that I needed. So I did catch that one. I didn't catch new episodes of Fairly Odd Parents or something until later in the day.
Right.
So
they would have those on like
they played it in the morning and then they played it again at night.
Yes.
So you didn't really miss them.
Right.
It wasn't like WB or Fox Kids. If you missed them, then you're
out of luck until maybe that brief weekday thing. But even then, you're usually out.
Yeah.
On weekdays, so you wouldn't be able to catch it. Yeah.
And since the very next week would be a new episode again.
Yeah.
If you missed the episode, then you just missed that episode.
Right.
Until the season ended, and then you have to wait for them to get back up to that episode that you missed. So it wasn't like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon where you could just miss the episode and then watch it again later on a different slot. Because Nickelodeon back then had what, 2 different channels?
Yeah, they had Nick. There was Nicktoons Network, of course.
They had Nick 1 and Nick 2 back on cable.
Yeah, you talking about when like you would get like the West broadcast, where you'd be able to catch up on what years because they had the old broadcast. That's right.
That's what they had. So you missed that morning.
So I would,
and then you would just like, okay, well I could just watch it on Nick 2 in like 3 hours from now.
Yes.
That's why Cartoon Network didn't do that though. Because I don't think Cartoon Network had a second show. Boomerang wasn't a thing back. Boomerang had its own episode. Wasn't a thing back there. Boomerang was a segment in Cartoon Network that came on like early.
In the 90s, yes, Boomerang became a thing, but then it wasn't on channels. It wasn't on a lot of cable packages until like the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
So
back then it was just a segment.
It was just a segment. Yeah.
So early morning. No,
I don't know when because I don't recall. When. I don't recall. I just remember the design of the bumpers.
I remember the bee boomerang around.
Yeah,
I remember that. That comes back to my mind.
Yes,
and
it always comes back to you, man.
Yeah, that whole stretch was like just for me as a kid, just got me just hooked on the cartoons, which just led me down the path of just keeping up to animated series and animated shows. Cause like the whole stigma of it's just for kids is a dying.
Thankfully, it's about time.
I believe,
dude. What's weird is obviously that was wrong because Boomerang existed in the 90s.
Yeah.
And if Boomerang existed in the 90s, that was made for older people that liked cartoons in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it never made sense. Like, look at those cartoons for kids. It's like the clearly cartoons are for all ages. So I'm glad we're breaking that. By the way, you can watch a much earlier episode of Cartoon Chat where I break down with Mark and I think Austin about like the stigma that animation had about like it's just for kids. Animation isn't for adults. Like we broke that down. That's an older episode, but it's worth checking out. So it's such a stupid mindset because it's just like every other media format. It's just that it's, to me, much more engaging.
I mean, it's still very looked down upon especially when you see things like award shows and stuff where they make jokes towards the animated series, like having, I don't know, something stupid like having maybe a minion bring out the award or something.
I don't think that's bad, but I think if you're gonna bring out a character, bring out an honorable character.
Yeah,
a minion.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But if you got a show, if they were, I don't know, giving an award to like, I don't know, the last season of Samurai Jack,
Oh my god.
And what came out was a minion to do the award. They were like, what the fuck? Are you just a joke to you?
Ultraman Tigo will be right back. And don't miss Kirby, who's up next. What's inside the box? You're watching Kirby, but be sure to check out Ultimate Muscle coming up next. What's inside the box?
I get what they're going for, but no, children aren't watching this.
Well, I just remember that brief era where, like, there was the Cartoon Network was trying to do live action stuff, and they really saw what Nick was doing. Like, Nick saw what Disney was doing. Disney was being successful by just doing live action stuff, and they had their Nickelodeon like award show, Kids Choice Awards, and that was big. So Cartoon Network also did their own Kids Choice Awards called the Hall of Game Awards, and so those were they were based for kids content. It was just such a weird like era where it was like we are doing this and we're shoving this down. It was terrible. It was a terrible idea. Like people look. The only thing that I thought was cool was they had Jack Black host the Nick one, and that was great because his energy is amazing. But I thought the idea is terrible. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I understand, but I still enjoyed watching it from time to time.
By the way, by extension, did you? Because of course I know anime is big, obviously for you as well, and I think a lot of people obviously. It keeps growing year over year. But was that because you were so into Cartoon Network? Obviously, people forget Toonami was on all day. Like there were segments in the daytime. It wasn't just that it was at night. And it was Toonami was aired at certain points in the day.
No, it aired after school.
Right. People do not remember that Toonami was not just an exclusively...
No, it started at 3 p.m. It started at 3 p.m. with either Hamtaro or Sailor Moon. And then it would be like a Gundam show, and then it'd be Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
And it was like a good 2-3 hours of Toonami.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just a nighttime thing. Like this, I remember coming home every day. That was every day. Toonami was an everyday thing. Well, not Saturdays, Sundays. It didn't.
But just that with that weekday stretch, like
So a bunch of anime that you just watch. So like, So there's a going thing that people believe that it was at nighttime. That's just really,
it's just because it hasn't aired since. Toonami hasn't been a daytime thing since like 2005.
Well, that's because the shows are now. They have more of a
sharper, aggressive tone.
Yeah, aggressive tone. Like even the shows like Dragon Ball Z were toned down to a scale. They cut out a lot of the super violent things that happen. You don't realize the violent things happen until you go back and watch it on the anime website, and you go, "That's what happened." Holy shit! You're just like.
Yeah.
You telling me I missed this? Yeah. You telling me there was blood when Goku and Raditz got their chest blown out? What?
You would have never known.
Yeah.
You would have never known back on Cartoon Network time. Yeah.
But it was a daytime thing, and it did appear like every day. It was every day, and then even on Cartoon Fridays, it would air an hour shorter.
Yeah.
So that the Cartoon Fridays
would get the lead in.
Yeah.
Like people. That's like it's getting forgotten just because Toonami is number one. Everyone streams it, anime.
Yeah.
And Toonami is not as. I love seeing that Toonami still exists, but it's just not what it was 2010, 2005.
Well, that's not really their fault. It's just
it's not their fault. It's just
and TV is dying anyway when it comes to certain things like that.
Yeah, like I bring up to Mark all the time. I don't. HBO Max, I don't know why they were so excited to have a Crunchyroll section. It's like, you have a brand that's more historic than Crunchyroll. Why you didn't call it the Toonami Hub or whatever that thing was called? Those sections. You have it right there.
Again,
I know it's a bigger name, but I'm saying, like, you should want to bring your brand into bigger acclaim. You should want to try and boost that relevance. And Toonami is...
What are you going to do? It's for the newer audiences.
Sadly.
Like, the older audiences don't watch this stuff, too. Like, dude, we watched it before you were...
even a seed.
I was going to say it more crude, but I'm glad you said a lot nicer.
I mean, at this point, we're all going to be taken over by Bluey anyway. So, I mean, who the fuck knows? Yeah.
I gotta get more into that.
It's God tier. It's not God tier. It's not like Evangelion, guys. But it's It's well executed. I love everything it does. But I asked this, and I know we talked about it before, and there's no place to put it, but like when you think about your favorite, it doesn't even have to be a favorite, like just one. What's something that you'd recommend, let's say, to like anyone in the audience? Let's say they're an adult, or something like. What would you recommend? What's one of your favorite things, like of all time in animation, that you would say, man, I love this. It is something that I would recommend to everyone, or it's just special to me. Like, what's something that grabs you there?
Well, if we're talking to adults, I like.
Would you fragment it like it was for kids, and you're like, I want to get you into something, you know where that is, or
yeah. When it comes to like kids, I'll put something.
You give them the final season of Attack on Titan.
No. I would give them more.
You would give them some mental scars. You give kids the final season of Attack on Titan, man. They wouldn't know what's happening. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I would give them something akin to like, definitely not that, but it would be something like Amphibia, but that's more of a more recent thing.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about past,
yeah.
I would just anything on Cartoon Fridays. It would just anything along there. If a kid is like, just watch all of that, you'll be fine. You'll be great. Like those are all great starting points for a cartoon. If you're looking to get into, and if they're growing up and need a little more action, I would send them to like Teen Titans or Samurai Jack, where it has that action, but not to a point where it could be seen as
leaning too far into gory.
Yeah.
You're doing the TVY7 thing right now.
Yeah, if we're talking about adults, there are just a shit ton of anime you can just get into right away.
What about for you? For you, what's a standout for you? Where it's like, goddamn, I love this. I gotta scream from the rooftops. I love this.
If you're talking about just that's definitely Gravity Falls. Like Gravity Falls is just one of those. Just anyone can get into it. Like that is the one that because it's the mystery for the adults. Like the mystery of the story going on as you start peeling out what's going on in the world around you. And the kids just like the colors, the comedy, the jokes. Like they get to follow that.
Right.
And then they'll have one of my most favorite but also scariest villains that ever appeared in animation ever.
Yes.
And that's Bill Cipher. He's just like if I ever had superpowers and ended up in any world or anything, he's probably the one villain I'm just like, I don't want to fight this guy.
Right.
Like I don't want nothing to do with him because I was literally scared of him. I was not joking whenever from his voice to the things he did to sometimes when he do the reverse talking and just oh my gosh, I was like, this dude literally scared me. I had to think to myself, he was scared of children, he was scared of the adults. Everyone can watch this and be equally scared of this guy.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's one of those shows that's just like I can easily go back to watch over and over again because the building narrative to it is just so great. Even though it ended prematurely, I think so. It ended prematurely, but at the same time, it ended really, really well because the ending really paid off through the series. And it also left it on a cliffhanger, like a cliffhangery, where you just like, I could bring it back if I want to.
Exactly.
Like, if I wanted to, I could bring it back because this guy ain't dead.
No.
Like, this Bill Cipher, he's not dead. Mm-hmm. So, if he wanted to, if something else popped off, it could be a little bit older main characters. It's just one of those shows that I think back to, and and I find myself whistling the main theme, just like, oh man,
yes.
And from the main theme where it has all the mysteries in the main theme that you can try to decipher, and then the things in the background, people talk and say the things they say. It was at the end of during the credits, they would have these little messages that you could decode, and like, okay, and then you just had people just decoding these like, oh, how's this connected here? How's this connected here? You remember back then there was this one point where they was like a character from Gravity Falls met the character from Rick and Morty, and you just like and then someone had to throw a picture or something.
Right, it's like theoretical.
The animators showed a picture of them, and then sometimes during each of the shows you see like Bill Cipher.
Just something, right.
And you just like, hey, wait, what's that? And you'd be like, Rick and Morty, you'd be like, wait, was that Bill? You just like, was that Bill Cipher? Like, what the fuck?
And you know it like if you know it's just a cameo.
No, of course.
But in your mind's reeling because you know how Gravity Falls is, you know how Rick and Morty is, and the growing narrative is like the things in the background you should be paying attention to, like, and it just gets to your mind. It's like, and you're like, oh man, and then the characters make comments like, I met this guy, but they don't say that. They
don't say the guy. No.
But like, I met this guy, and they describe them, and just like it sounds like that sounds like him. That sounds like her. It's like what? So yeah, it's one of those shows you can look back on, like, especially somebody watch Rick and Morty. Go check out Gravity Falls. Yeah. It's not as dark, not dark comedy as Rick and Morty is, but it's still one of those shows that
the journey is still like absolutely
really
fantastic. Yeah,
and like it's even though I think the reason the villain was scared, his fear was twins. And it's just like, that's kind of silly because with somebody with God level powers like you have, there's really no reason to be that afraid of them when you can just weird Mageddon them out of existence.
That's very true.
But yeah,
but it's still like, I mean, you know,
like I love that show. I just like it's really one of the reasons why I got into Amphibia, because I know that they worked on. They worked on. I was like, oh my gosh,
yes.
And I know they worked on the Owl House, but I feel like they worked more on Amphibia.
Did you feel like more team members feel like they, well, even the art design to me,
it's kind of similar.
Feels more like it was, not that, I mean, both of them I think are great from what I've seen, and I've only seen a minor amount from them, but, you know, Amphibia, out of the gate, people were like, man, I want to check that out, gotta check it out, got like, you know, Owl House too, but Amphibia I think came first anyway, and that's why it
came first. Like, if you want like, if you're into more world building, I say go watch Amphibia. Okay. If you're more into character building, go watch Owl House.
Gotcha.
Because Owl House does a better job at building these characters, because it starts with slow, and then you get more characters, and you build it, and it takes them to I don't know how, from like a loser to hero to zero.
It grows them. It grows them, but not in the most boring way.
It's not in a boring way, but me preferably, who likes world building, and I like seeing like how did this I like the world changed the character didn't change the world. If you want a world that changed the character, Amphibia. If you want the character that changed the world, Owl House.
Right.
Like she came to that world, and she changed it for the better. And then in Amphibia, she came to that world, and the world changed her for the better.
Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it. Like, yeah, that's a really good way of putting it out. Yeah. So like, yeah, that's why I like
words
her.
of wisdom from Martin.
If those are what I just said is what you're into, like it built, both of them built on from Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
But like Gravity Falls is just that is so great.
Absolutely.
If you've never watched it, go check it out.
Yeah, I mean, talking about lore, like, one of my favorite, by a mile, like, one of my favorite things growing up to watch was, like, watching, this is where I think I'm so stringent on, like, world-building lore, is, like, Fairly OddParents. I think the early seasons of Fairly OddParents do a really good job of, like, building this world that is all about fairy tales and all about fairies and stuff. Not fairy tales, but just wishing. But it has that stringent rules.
Yeah.
And they do such a good job of, this is in the rules, don't mess this up, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and even my kid brain, I'm like, okay. Like, and it just places you in the idea of world building so well, that whenever I'm looking at future series, I'm like, all right, do they execute that world building premise as well? Are they going about world building? Like, there's movies, and there's like adult movies. I'm sorry. Mature shows that are not adult movies. Words of wisdom from Martin. Awful vocabulary from Brian here. There are shows that are not. There are shows that are for older audiences that don't have that logic and maturity to actually even consider lore building the way that even a show like Fairly OddParents did for like 5 seasons straight.
Coming up next, it's Aladdin, followed by 101 Dalmatians, right here on Toon Disney.
And so I do appreciate when there are shows that just sort of tackle and focus around world building. Well, just dealing with these characters, the character's journey doesn't necessarily, and that's what's great about Fairly Odd Parents to me. It's like in the beginning, it's like Timmy is in this world, and he's forced within still the confines of the rules, and the adventures are still within the confines of those rules. But over time, through specials, it starts to fracture those rules. And I think what probably happened is the writers, either a couple of them left, or they just kind of got loose with it, because by season 8, 9, they're getting way too disinterested in the lore, and it just fell off. But I do like it's like one of my go-tos when it clicks in my head. Like, I love the lore and the rule set and the world building lore of Fairly Odd Parents.
I think it's just those from that person who made them. Because Danny Phantom did something similar as what you're talking about with his world building. Like, oh, sorry, when it constantly it was I like continuity.
Exactly.
Continuity where it takes things from the past and like, okay, this happened, so you can't because later on you're like, we can't go back on it. And Danny Phantom did it all very, very well with
the villains a lot, really well executed with its villains.
They never changed the fact that Vlad was in love with a mom, or and that that his father just doesn't notice it at all. They never changed that to the fact he actually, they never came back and say later on like, oh, I did notice it, or say that he just totally ignored it for their friendship, which wasn't a cool concept, but at the same time the fact that they would never.
I got you.
Yeah, if it did that, then it would make Vlad less of a villain.
Right.
I feel like it would make him less of a villain because he.
You would have gotten that Disney sympathy.
Yeah. You still knew that. You still was like, man, you my bro or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
There's a world where you want, because you do wish that idea, that premise was there, because there's a world where he's not a butthole. Much.
But that's because the father actually became the power.
That's the pro. Yes.
No. He turns out he's still a butt. He was still a butt. He was still a butt in that one.
That's right, because it's core to his character to be a butthole.
Yeah, and it found out that he did something. He did something that effed him up. He had set the trap to go off.
Right. Yeah, he's
the one who caused him to turn into a ghost.
Right.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Like, he was the one who set it off so that he would turn into a ghost and establish.
That was a big reveal when it was.
And then
the
mom was still ghost hunting, even though because Vlad hated ghosts in that reality, and he didn't want anything to do with it, but she was still doing it on behind the scenes and everything.
Yes. Thus leading to
the
doing the setup. And,
But I also like the fact that a lot of his abilities, it grew with him. Like, the two instances was when he met his future self. And because he met his future self and he learned about his ghostly whale, he learned it quicker than he would before. So it kind of changed the timeline.
Right.
Like, you're like, hey, did you learn this yet? Of course you didn't learn this yet, because I didn't learn it to this point. But he was like, well, I'm going to do it now. And he learned it now. So you're like, okay, that's like changing the timeline so that way doesn't happen. And then there was other times when like his, every time ghosts show up, his little.
Of course, has a little freeze breath, yeah.
But then you learn later on that like this is actually an ability you have with ice. Like you have ice breath, like an ice breath where you can just fire. Like, oh
so
my goodness,
cool to learn,
this is
like progressively.
Yes, and then later
skill.
Just suddenly like he learned he had power blasts. He didn't know he had them until he just did it. He's like, whoa, what's that? And it just continuity builds from this, and just like, okay, this is a good way to do this. I love, like I said, I love a good continuity, especially if they don't try to change it or make it so like, oh, this like there are episodes where things will happen and then the character will learn it, and then the same episode, next episode they would.
There's still the base. They're either the same base character,
and they try to do the same.
Or they just forgot again. The same lesson with something
over
else
and over
potentially.
again. There's the newest.
There's quite a few shows in our history that have done that, and I'm like, are you serious?
The recent one for me is the newest season of Ben 10. Like every single episode, he's learned the same lesson over and over again. The same exact one. Like, didn't you just learn this from the last episode?
There's a reason why I stopped. I never got into that one.
That is I try to do what people say, like when people say with Teen Titans Go, give it a chance, and I'm just like, I gave that one a chance. I gave it 2 seasons.
Oh my God, you gave it way too much chance.
I wanted to. It's Ben 10. I wanted to like it. I like all the way up until Omniverse. Like, I even like Omniverse for the newer aliens. Yeah. But this is just
this reboot.
It's just so bad.
Yeah. Everyone from my older channel knows. I brought up a lot of the time. I hate when a reboot or a follow-up show does worse. Nothing can be worse to me than a follow-up show or a sequel or something that's next that does worse than its original or its predecessors, because I think Ben 10, the original, does a really good job with progression. Its teenage years does another good job with progression. I think it does that's a really good show that's merchandise based, but it's not just trying to be like, all right, I forgot this and I'm moving on, and I forgot this and I'm moving on. It's like, it's very... It flows naturally, and he learns and he adapts, and it's a really good execution.
Even Omniverse had of him growing up even more as he getting new partners and learning how to work with them and everything. But then you get to new series and it's just
same old Ben.
What are you doing?
Same old Ben.
I really another show like that would be Transformers Prime. Like
so Transformers Prime, is that a newer one or is that an old one? Because I don't follow Transformers lineup.
It's the one that was on what's the name of that?
Was it Saturday Morning Cartoon Book?
No. It was on a different hub. It was on the hub.
Dude, you remember the hub?
Yeah, the hub.
That thing was so short-lived. That thing was like, I think 2 years max.
Really?
Because I don't remember it being around that long. Because it was like...
I mean, it had to be there long because it was like 2 or 3 seasons of that Prime.
Was it? Because it was like Discovery Kids before, I think, right? And then like it became the hub. And yeah, it would have like mostly like action animation and Saturday morning cartoons.
That's where I learned about Dan Versus. But yeah, Transformer Prime had a series on Hub. It was really good.
Right.
Really, really well thought out. Really, when it went through it, and then you got to the second series, which aired on Cartoon Network, and it was not bad.
Just mid.
Just not bad, but definitely not as good as its predecessor.
Gotcha.
It clearly was a sequel because it was like, but it was very, very comedic.
Right.
In my brain, the worst genre shift you can possibly have is from completely action to completely comedy. And
which is, I think, why...
It had action in it.
Yeah.
But it was so comedic that I was just like, this is not good. Why did y'all do this?
That's a really good point. That's one of the bigger turns that you don't want to make in terms of a follow-up.
And a lot of Cartoon Network shows do that with, like I keep saying, like Teen Titans Go.
Again, I think literally we talked about... you guys know, I've talked about this a billion times on my old channel. But if Teen Titans Go was its own IP and not connected to Teen Titans at all, people would, I think, actually love it more.
If the original Teen Titans still was making new episodes and Teen Titans Go was like a side thing, I'm going to hope people will like it more. Yeah. But as of now, it feels like a sequel to the series.
Does. Yeah, that was a bigger thing.
And that was a mindset when we first heard it. Teen Titans Go, they're like, a sequel to the series? And in that mind, then it was completely blown away. I'm not saying Teen Titans Go isn't a good show, because it's gotten better, and there are some episodes where I've enjoyed watching. But it's not a show that, like... Okay. Let's put it this way. You don't have to jump on from the beginning.
Of course not.
Like,
it's filler for the... look, okay. Like,
you can watch any episode and
you'll be fine. You don't need to... It doesn't matter. And, like, that's the thing that I... Look, again, like, the big issue that I've had with Go is always just, like, it... Number one, on Cartoon Network, it took up all the airtime. And so, even if you were to give Teen Titans Go time, it became the priority. Like, for instance, there was a time where you had, like, Young Justice and all that, and that was on Cartoon Network. That was, like, 2010s. And then that got ignored, essentially, for comedy for a comedy show like Teen Titans Go.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not. It's just a choice. You know, it's like it is
And
what
then-
it is. But
Then there are shows like Thundercats, and then there are shows like it was another one that went from action to comedy, and Ben 10, yeah, Ben 10,
yeah,
and when it does this is like the worst genre shift it could possibly have,
right.
especially if the show before it was an action show. That's why I know Rise of Ninja Turtles is a really good show, but it's still only 60-40 to me, with 60 miss and 40 hit.
I see.
And because it came off the tails of 2012 Ninja Turtles, which is phenomenally good, so good.
Right. It's tough to have a I do, before you jump any further, I do want to say that Teen Titans to Teen Titans Go jump, but that's just last thing. Like, there's very similar to me was Toradora, this romance anime.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like so everyone's like, all right, can we get more of that? And I think the next thing after that was a comedy thing where they're like chibi characters, and they were just like making jokes. Like all the cast is together, and it has nothing to do with what happens after. And there's nothing. It's like we wanted to see what happens beyond. We want to see if like what happens to more to these characters, what goes further, and it ties a bow on it. But they have to split. Like there's a split, and it's like fuck. Like all right, can we? And but it didn't. You know, it was painful, man. Like it was painful seeing that next.
Why
thing.
I read the manga.
I see. I should just finish it off that way. I see.
Yeah.
But,
so.
Sorry, you were going on.
Yeah, so I really bothers me when these things happen and there's no and like there's no reason why they change that way except to appeal to kids or sell toys. And
it's weird because they'll claim that it's appealing to kids, but it's still, even the original content was appealing to kids anyway.
That's the argument that I hate when people say like, oh, well, Teen Titans Go, they say, oh, this is for kids.
But the original Teen Titans.
Yeah, but the original Teen Titans were for kids.
Yeah.
So what the hell are you saying?
Yeah.
Like that makes no sense. Like, oh, this is like all I'm hearing is that you're saying all I'm hearing is saying kids nowadays are dumber than kids of old.
That's the impression you're getting.
Like you're just saying they're dumber because basically they're saying they don't need continuity or anything. They just need blah 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 fart noises.
Yes.
And just like, well, would you just saying they had short attention spans? Are you saying they're stupid? That's because that's what I'm hearing. that's what I'm hearing because it's like, oh, we needed a more intelligent story because we needed to like follow the lore and everything, like continuity. Like that's not entirely true because there were comedic shows that we watched. Like the entire Cartoon Fridays was a comedic series-based show.
Pretty much comedic focus, yeah.
And Teen Titans was the few action shows. Not few.
It was one of the few, yeah. I do want to ask you, because I have this theoretical in my head where, like, I feel like it's weird when you look at the history, not of animation in total, but just in, like, 50 years, is you have a lot of these simple, I can't say like they're all simple, but a lot of simple Saturday morning cartoons in like the 70s and 80s, and you know, that's an interesting journey. I'm overshooting, there's a lot of animated series that were interesting there, but the grand majority of them were simple animated series, you know, that you could just turn on, keep it moving, kids would watch, families would watch, fun. You even obviously had you had the Looney Tunes and things like that.
Uh-huh.
In the 90s, though, you had this real renaissance of, like, really good content, like Batman, the animated series, and, you know, things of that nature, where it felt like we were at a peak point. And I'm not saying it's better than it was now. Because I think now is better than ever because more people can get into it, more people can watch more accessible content. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying before YouTube and content like that, like, let's say 2000s, I feel like we were definitely on the backslide because it felt like we were reaching a point where, like, even on, like, Kids WB and Fox Kids, you had Batman, the animated series, you had, like, Superman, like, you know, these shows that are, like, it's like, that's good, but, like, that's how far people were like, oh, we can push the boundaries, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so weird that, like, it got so pulled back. Like, in such a short period, it got pulled back to like, well, all right, adult shows, you go, and not even quote-unquote adult cartoons. Like, Batman would never be aired. And there would be, obviously, a newer version of Batman in the future, and Batman Beyond, I think, is still very good. It's great. But that early 90s Batman would not be on Cartoon Network today. Because he'd be so scared of, like, oh, God, like, kids, you know, it's like...
Please wake up.
The best reason to get out of bed.
I will give you commands. You will obey them. Look out!
Toonami, the Rising Sun. Saturday mornings at 10. Home in Toonami.
Yeah.
You know.
No offense to anyone who might be listening to this and who's a lot younger than we are right now. I do think that it comes to the lines of a lot more kids and adults nowadays are a lot more sensitive to certain things.
Yeah, just general.
So a lot of things that we got away with back then wouldn't gotten away. We won't get away with now.
Right.
Even if we were just joking around and busting your balls or something like that, it would come off as insulting and
hurtful,
people would want to be apologized to.
Yeah.
Like everything. And nowadays, again, I do think people did apologize when certain things happen, but there are times when there's a joke or in an animated sequence or something like that. They should be allowed a little bit of freedom, and it shouldn't be pushed to the side of, well, you could put this here in adults cartoons, you could put this here in kids cartoons, but you can't put them, but you can't have them in both.
Right.
So yeah, I think that there should be a little bit of segue, a little bit of leeway when it comes to certain things like this is not real. People gotta say this is not real. This is an animated thing. It's fake. In the long run, the series will end, and years from now, people won't even know what that was.
Sadly, but yes.
And so they should a little bit of leeway will make for a more entertaining show or more entertaining program.
Because you can push the boundaries a little.
Yeah.
You don't have to be put in a box.
Yeah, it shouldn't just be Rick and Morty says all of these things or do all of these things. And people are okay with it because it's meant for adults.
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying have a segment of someone
intestines burst out. Of course, there's a limit. Yeah,
I just saying
on a kids show, but like you can have action animation, and it doesn't have to be.
Someone can throw a punch. Nothing like someone can throw a punch. Like
and you can see the punch, and
like,
it can be full impact, and it doesn't have to be like, well, our lawyers think that the hero
like,
boy
it's
can't
not like
punch
children
the kid.
don't. It's like children don't fight.
Right.
In real life, hell, I'm pretty sure children are the most
the physical,
because adults are like, I don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
Because the first time you throw a punch, and the first thing they're like, I'm gonna take you to court now. I want your money.
Right.
Sure, my face might be messed up, but I'm gonna have a lot more money into this. So
playing the long game. Oh, yeah, I got you.
So I think kids are more likely to throw a punch. So like, if someone got punched or violence, said a mean thing, says like it would be more factual to have them say that mean thing or do that bad thing, and then have the adult in the cartoon or something explain to them why this is bad. This could be a lesson for them. This could actually be a lesson. Like violence happens.
Yes,
it's going to keep happening, and you could just have them say or do something in the episode. Like, okay, like a good thing with this is probably is mean to hell, but when Arthur punched GW, even though it was completely justified, it was a good learning. Like, you're a lot bigger than her, and when it hurts, you should know better than to just out with violence. Even though she totally deserved it.
Even though she,
it's absolutely deserved it. I don't care what anyone says. You don't throw no model out. If someone threw my gun out a window to try to see the robot could fly, ooh boy.
Yeah.
You know how long it takes to make a model? Shit long. It is complicated.
It's very complicated.
And it's time consuming.
Yes.
And once you're done, you're just like you're happy. I'm going completely off.
Go. But no, that's that whole established situation.
If someone took my Gundam, and they threw it out a window or dropped it or something after I told them completely not to touch it, I don't know if I can avoid violence at that point.
And completely justified violence,
like,
by the way. Yes.
It's just something just like, it's something you just don't do.
No.
And like I just like
that's why like there's a lot of modern. Either there were shows in the past that did this, but it feels like it's increasing now. Where it's like, obviously, like you said, that happened in Arthur, but it feels like the mindset now is even more in that direction of, violence at all is bad. It's like, yes, violence in general is bad, but like the idea that was fine to do that's awful. That was a lot of time. That was a lot of investment. And I think, like, that's something where you need to be able to show and present the audience with the idea that, something that takes a lot of time and investment and focus, you can't just do that without repercussion. You can't just go along, affect someone like that.
And I don't think I could just sit there and go, it's fine, it's okay, it was a mistake. Because I'd just be devastated. And it feel like no one cares about...
Like the value that or not even what,
and like
even what you
episode,
care about it.
Even in the episode, after she did it, they all blaming like you shouldn't have did what you did, but it wasn't. They didn't turn around and go, EW, why did you throw the thing out the window?
Yes.
It wasn't until in the episode it was like, it's a model plane, it doesn't fly. But the parent, I don't think the parents scolded her at all.
It was just like, hey,
it was like, you know what she did, right?
Right.
Because I think if I was an adult at that point and they were telling me what happened, I'd be like, well, what'd you do to DW? I think I'd be the other person like, well, what'd you do to the little girl? Like, well, she got punched. I think she had a punishment enough.
Can we investigate a little more?
Yeah. Can you just a little bit more? Because I'm like, I'd be that adult. Like, I put models together. Let me tell you, they ain't easy.
Absolutely not.
And
especially if you have to paint them later.
And he didn't even get a chance to paint it, I don't think.
Oh.
And I was like, and just to think that you just destroyed it. I'd be upset. I'd be really upset.
Absolutely.
But we're getting off topic.
No. What's just a quick tangent, like when you think about like just nostalgic, not even nostalgic because it's one of those things. Is Arthur like the first thing you think of when you think of like classic, like not even preschool, super young kid shows? Like, because I always think about like there's a vague part of my memory where I think about like Roly Poly Oly and like these shows that were on the verge of like barely existing in my brain because I was so young. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just
like
these super like small development car. Obviously, Blue's Clues. I'm thinking about PBS Kids, like all that stuff, like so many of those.
I think it would probably be for me something like that, like
Dragon Tales. Like Dragon Tales is just.
I think it wouldn't be a PBS
crazy
show. It would be like something like the Nick Jr. show. It would be like something like Kipper.
Oh, Kipper! Oh my gosh!
Kipper
was the one with
the dog with a sliver. Yeah,
right.
Kipper.
Right.
Kipper the dog.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a toad, not a frog. Like the thing about Kipper I remember is that dang song, and it gets stuck with you because it was just such a smooth jazz little song, kind of come on. And I don't remember the episode. Oh wait,
it's all coming back to you. It's trying to.
I remember.
It's trying to pull itself back. The memory was trying to pull itself back.
The Play-Doh Kid. Gumby.
There we go.
Gumby.
Yeah.
There's something that I like it back to when I think about it is like, I always think about this is the time he had the nightmare where he got trapped.
Yeah.
As like, I feel like it was a cube. Because he got trapped in a cube and it was one episode and I remember that. And he got trapped somewhere, and all his friends went away, and he was just trapped there forever.
Yeah,
it was like a nightmare.
Fueled your claustrophobia.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember that. And I was just like, man, that's a really effed up episode when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I remember that one scene, him looking sad as they're all going away, and him stuck like a brick form. I was just like, it's not something happy. It's actually really sad,
but that's usually what happens is when you think about some of these shows, you think about some of like the most traumatic things from said shows. And
I always try to find that. I try to find that scene, and I can't find it. And
that's tough. That's tough.
But it's just I remember that, and it just I always think about like, oh man, that was. And then he wakes up as a dream, and then he's back and with his friends and everything. I'm just like, oh man, that was really traumatic. Now I'm thinking about it, that was a really traumatic thing that happened.
Yes.
Like, I can't believe that got past the censors back then.
Literal nightmare fuel. You know.
But yeah, it wasn't of, like it's not it's that, and then there's also another one. Don't at me. Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Didn't it have that nice theme song?
That's the one I was talking about. The
Yeah.
one. Gotta
Yeah.
get up, gotta get going, gonna see a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Not the other one, but
Right.
this one. This one's the one
Right.
I remember watching because
I see,
it
I
was
see.
it was one of the only shows that came out on that channel. It's on that CBS channel, and
There's about that when it was a
Was it
early
Disney?
morning thing or
Yeah.
whatever. That probably was Disney. It
and
was
that
Disney.
and the one with the kid with the glasses. So I always remember. It's the theme songs that I remember. It's,
Yeah.
He was like he was like it was like CSI.
Yeah.
Not CSI.
But it's some investigation.
But in a school,
Like an investigation.
He had a partner with the golf girl, and
Mm-hmm.
it would solve cases in the school.
Yeah.
Like what?
That's why I loved, by the way.
Hey kid.
That's why I loved American Vandal and why I loved you brought up that show earlier, the investigative show, animated show.
Is that the Conan? Detective Conan?
The what?
Detective Conan Case Closed?
Yeah. That's why I love those because there's something about like when a show is based around taking minor things, but for a kid it's much more serious. But like actually, adults writing that in a way where they take it even seriously themselves. Like you are really immersing yourself into this situation that is actually genuinely serious. To kids.
No, actually, like there were a couple.
Obviously, there's some jokes. Like there's kind of
there are episodes where those actually should be taken seriously because the things that happened was actually serious. Because there was this one time where someone was going around making people sick.
Oh, jeez!
They had fever.
Who's causing COVID around the school?
And basically, there was this contest going on.
Right.
And it was like he was like an assassin. He was like an assassin, and where he goes around giving kids the flu so that they could fever.
So they
couldn't win. So they couldn't be in the contest, and the person who's bought him to do it could just win by default.
This guy's a madman.
I was like, so there was episodes like that. Episodes when like donation money would go missing.
Oh no!
Like hundreds of dollars would go missing.
And
then they would have to investigate how to find it.
Yeah.
Fillmore.
There we
That's
go.
a go. I was like, Fillmore.
Yeah.
I was like, I
By the way, there's probably eventually, whenever comments would be like, "Hey, you're saying Fillmore," like you're like through the whole time.
I'm pretty sure they are like, this brother is like, it's Fillmore.
It's
Fillmore.
Yeah.
It's like I just. I'm thinking Baltimore, like
Yeah, Moore, Bolton,
More.
Phil,
More.
Philly, all that, yeah. But all right, I think we're getting to the point where we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Martin, just what's something that you would? I said that in terms of recommendation. I think I already said that, like what you'd recommend. But
yeah, Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls. What would you recommend? Let's say you only had about 3 hours, so you have about a movie time. What would you recommend as an animated movie? What's something you go back to, or is just nostalgic, or is a fave of yours where you're like, God damn, I gotta say, you should watch this.
Can I take 2 of them? Or
You can take as many as you want. Yeah, like your
All right,
favorite
so
list, whatever.
I just gonna go down the list.
Go for it. Hey, by the way, of course, like I said, animation of all types. So anime, stop motion, any of that, whatever, animated cartoon, all that.
They're all animated, so
So,
I would go with American Tales.
Fievel.
Fievel.
Yeah.
Both.
Do you like West more?
I like both of them.
For some reason, I like West more because it immerses you in that Western thing. I don't know why.
Because it's that whole Dig to the West thing. That
Yeah.
But that one, then there's the Brave Little Toaster.
That's classic.
I whenever I see a balloon go flying, I think of that song when the balloons be singing. La 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 la. I think of that song every time. There's of course, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
Like these are the animation things that everyone should watch.
Yes.
And the last one is definitely not least that I think you should definitely go watch if you ever get a
Shrek
chance.
the Third, ladies and gentlemen.
Cats Don't Dance.
Ooh.
That I
okay.
really like
Okay,
that.
Cats Don't Dance. Nice.
I like the song scores. I like the whole dynamic of the and I also like the ending where they show off the animals in the animals in the movies.
Yeah.
It's such a fun little.
That's Cats Don't Dance. Okay.
Cats Don't
All
Dance.
right.
I love watching that. Like
That's awesome.
How he
Man.
gives them like, look, we can be more than what we are, guys.
Right.
Just some animals.
Absolutely.
We can show you that we can do the thing, and then it's a great story. Like we can do it. We need to show them that we can do it.
Right.
And like we need to get past this whole evil little girl and show the world that what we're made of. Like, and every time I like yes, and then they get to that, and then I love that last song. That no, nothing's gonna stop us. I was like, I love that so much. Just that in the final fight with the butler.
Yes.
What did the cat say? I love that.
That's awesome.
Like
That's a good collection.
Cats Don't Dance. And the thing is, I don't even think that came in theaters. That was just straight to TV.
It's still, yeah.
And you can go watch it right now, right? Like,
I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure it's probably free on YouTube or something.
Here's the thing: if it's not free on YouTube, it's probably in your local thrift shop somewhere.
Yeah.
Just scroll, just look around, go through like a bunch of VHS tapes. Spend $4 on a VCR. Ooh.
Yeah. So Brave Little Toaster.
Check it out.
Brave Little Toaster.
Yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
That's a good line. That's a good line. Brave Little Toaster.
American Tail.
American Tail. Both of them, you said.
Yeah, both of them. And Cats Don't Dance. These are really great show. Another one will be, but that's more of a that has so many of them. I don't.
What? Land Before Time?
No. All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Because there's how many dogs
like
go to heaven are there?
4 or 5 of them.
I only watched 2 of them. I've never seen.
Have you seen
all
movies?
of them?
No,
It's because it's like, is it really? It's not really the core. It kind of loses its thread after,
because it became a TV show too. I think at one point, didn't it? I think it became.
It's like with Bolto, where like I love the first one. I love the second. I kind of am fine with the second one. It just sinks.
I think the first one is All Those Go to Heaven. I think you should watch that first one, like the one where he sacrifices himself to save the kid.
Right.
I think that's the only one, and maybe the Christmas one because it's funny. Like
Okay.
but yeah. But,
all right. Martin, thank you for this episode of Cartoon Chat.
no problem.
I hope the audience now knows everything about you. They can now do identity theft, and we can make our lives a bit better.
I should have thought
No,
they made to do that. Since my name ain't actually
you don't even
Martin.
have your actual. Yeah, it's like
This guy named Martin, they go looking all over like,
it's like
what's his name?
Right, like that's all you've learned. Like, but yeah, man. Still, we'll figure out a spot to say like where you can find him. But for now, you can find him right here on ScreenBlast and on Cartoon Chat. We'll definitely have you on for we'll do one of the next movies or TV shows we talk about, because it's really fun to just dive in. Like I said, when we did Atlantis yesterday, and whenever that comes out, it was just really fun to like rewatch a show and like, oh, this is actually like really like messed up a bit, like not because of modern sensibility, just because you're an adult now watching a show that you thought was really cool back then, and it's like, you're really kind of, well, they were rushed for time, but I understand. But it's beautiful. But yeah. But anyway, guys, you can of course find me on atdemocracy.com on YouTube, and you can find me right here on ScreenBlast. Of course, you can find this on all podcast services and on YouTube. And yeah, man. Again, thank you very much, and we'll wrap it up here. Have any final seconds? Anything you want to say?
Nope.